Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and as promised, and as we like to do here on the program, we like to deliver, and I have delivered Mr. Brian E. Roach from wherever the heck he's been. He's been in hiding since the Steelers' wild card loss, I believe. Maybe, I don't know. I'm teasing. Brian, how's it going, buddy? What's going on?
We're on fire.
Are you on fire? I don't know. You're just obsessed with the little stick thing. So my niece had a first birthday party, Winter Wonderland, over the weekend, and my sister-in-law got cupcakes because there's other kids there. So I mean, this is better, and of course the small cake where the kid just Hulk smashes into it and stuff, which is always fun watching their expression and their sugar high. But we were using those stick lighters. Oh my goodness, there was like a candle on every single cupcake. I'm like, why are we doing this? Like, they don't want to light and stuff. So you just brought back some repressed recent memories here. But
so, and did you get the white fluffy stuff?
The white fluffy stuff? Not that much white. So I traveled back to the homestead over there in Northeast Ohio, Youngstown, Ohio, and they have plenty of white fluffy stuff still left over. But when I returned over across state to my new location, it didn't even look like it snowed. And it snowed on Friday, just a little dusting. But there's these forecasts that are coming out later this week. So if you catch it, by the way, happy February, everyone. We didn't want to do this on Groundhog's Day. So, and then we'll have a repeat show.
That's right. We'll just do it again.
That's okay. You're going to cover a lot of the stuff I already talked about last week.
We got about 8 inches, I think. We got about 8 inches of snow. Friday, I took my daughter back to college. So, you had to
travel through all that.
Well, no.
The silver lining is she's not at home now. He's not allowed to say that. Someone upstairs or somewhere might end up hearing it through the grapevine.
No, I mean, there's really no truth to that. I'm glad she's doing well, and but look, she's a kid, right? When she's home, she's upstairs. I don't even know she's home anyway. Yeah. So it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Mine does the same thing. Mine locks herself in her room until she doesn't.
Love you, Emily.
Then the room is too messy, and then she has to go to my room and make it a disaster too. So
no, she's not allowed to do that.
Yeah, I try my best, but
Well, mine's 21, so
Yeah, mine's getting to the age where I just can't pick her up and body slam her like we used to, Brian. It's disappointing,
Mine will never get that big. I'm just saying,
that's kind of funny.
She's a tiny girl.
And mine's a tiny giant. Not to get too far off the rails here, but my 8-year-old daughter, she takes after me. I'm 6'5". The wife's like 5'10", 5'11". The wife's very tall too, so she's got the genetics for it. My mom is only 5 feet tall, 5 feet even. I even call her a hobbit. She may have shrunk. She's 75 years old. Just had her birthday, or 75th, just this past November. So happy belated, Mom. We know you're not listening because you don't use YouTube, but or anything else. What's a podcast? But anyways, my kid is almost at 8 years old. My daughter is almost as tall as my mother at 5 feet tall right now. So. Got a cool picture.
If she's 5 feet tall, she's taller than my 21-year-old daughter.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it really is. But time flies. We forget about some things. I was going to segue with the short-term memory thing because there's a lot of that going on here, particularly with some of the Steelers beat writers, which I'll get to. I sent some stuff from the Ye Olde Steelers Digest in the backrooms from last year. I want to read some of this because. We have, let me see, last season, it was about the Steelers restructuring a lot of contracts. It was, let me see, the Steelers, instead of having your $198 million salary cap going up to $210 per team, which would have been an increase based on recent history. This is per Bob Labriola of Steelers Digest and probably on Steelers.com at some point last year. If you want to catch this on their site, look it up. But it dipped to $182.5 million per team with no advance warning. The Steelers were, I'm reading this because some of this I forgot too. I thought they were 20+ million over. They were 30+ million over and had to get compliant by 4 p.m. on March 17th. Which included Ben Roethlisberger accounting for $42 million against the cap, or about 23% by himself. At that point, there was speculation whether he would be back. They made some other moves to reduce. They had to release some players and lose some players in the process. And we'll be talking about that as we get into more free agency stuff. But I wanted to I'm just adding on to some of the stuff last week where I may have gotten scatterbrained and fill in some of the gaps here, Bri. And I'm going to ask you about some of the quarterbacks too as we get into this a little more. But one thing that we have that I don't know, we catch a lot of flack sometimes. We kind of go against the grain. And the reason I'm bringing up the salary cap thing is that you get guys, Ed Bouchette, for example. I brought this up last week. He brings up certain signings like Zach Banner. Oh, it's a good thing they wasted money on him and not re-sign Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton was never a possibility when they didn't have any money available. It's like they forget that, or I don't know, they just go whichever way the wind blows because it's cool and you sound like you're part of the in crowd. We catch a lot of flack, but we waited. And particularly, I released the podcast about quarterbacks last Thursday about maybe a half hour or hour. It went up before we officially got Ben Roethlisberger's retirement news. Not that we thought he wasn't going to retire, but we got some news about some other people that ends up being a little more, well, let's say wishy-washy, or we got some other confirmations and stuff. But it's not always easy because you get called, myself, yourself, whatever, everyone else that's working here at Steel City Underground, get called idiots and fools, and then there's people who argue about things. And my favorite is when I post something about all the quarterbacks who aren't free agents this season. And in the comment section, people are mentioning all the quarterbacks I listed in the article as being targets for the Steelers. And my head just explodes. And it's like, but one thing, we finally got Ben Roethlisberger's retirement. And it seems like we are inundated, if that's a word, with.
No, it's not.
I made it up.
I know.
Now you threw me off, but we got the thank you 7 and the 7 at 7 and 747 and 77 and 711 and whatever things for Ben right now, and then of course all the quarterback talk that comes with it, which I'll get some of your opinions on that here in a second.
Yeah, I mean, look, my daughter asked me, she texted me, oh, Ben has retired, and I said, yep. Not a big surprise, not something we didn't expect to have happen. We knew it was coming. I sat through, as you did, that Browns game. There's no coming back from that, as we've said over and over again. You go through that, you get that kind of adulation, you get that kind of love and support from the fans, only because they know this is the last time they're going to see you, and they want to show their appreciation. You just knew it wasn't going to end any differently. And she said, well, are you sad? And I said, no, I don't get sad about stuff like this. It's an expected part of the process. And, I'm not sad. I'm thankful for 18 years of great memories. That's what I am. Was everything perfect? Of course not. What quarterback? I mean, do you think the Dolphins fans were sad when Marino retired? Probably a little bit, but were they looking back at the time he was there and going, well, yeah, it was a lot of fun. He was fantastic, but damn it, they never won, so screw him. I don't like him. No. And Ben won twice. Look.
Man, I didn't have this on the docket, man, and now you got to make me bring this up one more time. I'm going to try and be brief, though. Mike Tomlin didn't win with all this talent, and Ben Roethlisberger, yada, 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 yada. And once again, I have to bring – and you know what? This is a good point to bring this up just because of the Bengals and everything else, too, and what's going on. You got Andrew Filippone out there saying the Bengals now have more wins or as many wins as the Steelers have playoff wins as they've had in the last 10 years. And then people say, oh, Tomlin couldn't win with all this talent. And I talk about short-term memory. I remember when all of Yins were mad that Le'Veon Bell kept getting his knee taken out from his knee. It was like his leg out from his leg. And it happened 2 seasons in a row. In 2014, it ended up happening in the final game of the season, and they had to go out and get Ben Tate off the street, who was just cut from the Cleveland Browns, who was not good. And with a couple of practices, he blew an assignment with Terrell Suggs where there was a strip sack, and he blew something else too, and fumbled. He fumbled, didn't he? And yeah, you forget about that. Oh, they had all this talent. No, you're missing the guy that's with the run game. You don't think that's important? Well, take a look at what's been going on the last few years. And then they lose Bell again, and they didn't have him in 2015. So 2016, they get Le'Veon Bell on the field with Ben Roethlisberger. And don't forget, Ben Roethlisberger also got hurt in that crazy Bengals game. We talk about the Bengals. The last time they were in the postseason.
Do we have to? I don't want to.
No, I don't really need to, but Pac-Man Jones talking about – but it was funny because Pac-Man Jones talked about how Andy Dalton had shot that team and had held the team back. Oh, no, not you and Burfict's penalties. And also knocking Antonio Brown out, which that we think that set a screw loose, and that's why he's been nuts ever since. And people forget about that. You didn't have Antonio Brown when you went up to Denver. Nearly won, but Fitzgerald Toussaint is the running back and fumbles. I don't remember where on the field, but you got Noodle Arm and Peyton Manning that, gets him across the finish line because of that. And you got Sammy Coates. Sammy Coates. You remember Sammy Coates? Nobody liked Sammy Coates. That's the first game that he actually plays in. I mean, it's...
Sorry, that was rude.
I know. Well, it drives me crazy, man. It's just exactly... Brian's showing he mangled up his fingers, but he had some problem. He had issues with catching the ball to begin with. Don't do all that. You're going to get us in trouble.
Let me just interrupt you. People need to understand something here. Look, do you get that Ben is playing in an era, in the Tom Brady era? That's look, he's won 7 Super Bowls, all right? And that's 7 that you can't win. Look, I hate Tom Brady. I loathe him with almost every fiber of my being. And he's probably a very nice guy. But I cannot stand it for multiple reasons, which we've discussed, not the least of which that he kept beating us. But from a realistic standpoint, the guy is probably the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. You also played in an era with Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. How many Super Bowls did he win? 2. How many has Ben won? 2. All right. This concept of, well, we had the most talented teams is invalidated. Look, you don't always win with the most talented teams, and it has nothing to do with coaching. It just has to do with the way the ball bounces sometimes. But Ben played in an era with the most dominant, really, quite frankly, the most dominant dynasty that NFL has seen, with the Patriots dynasty with Brady and Belichick. That's just a given. The fact that he got to as many AFC championships as he got to, the fact that he won the Super Bowls that he won, and got to another one that he didn't win, that is a testament to the fact that he's still, the coaching is still good coaching. They found a way to win, even in an era where really you just had this completely dominant team. Think about the teams that played against the Steelers in the 70s. They probably were the same way. Oh, damn Steelers, blah, blah, blah. Well,
that's a great point, because I equate, and people think this is blasphemy, but I've written more than one article about how I feel Mike Tomlin is very much like John Madden, and John Madden had to contend with Chuck Noll in the Steelers dynasty, despite being a great coach with great Raiders teams, and he just he couldn't get past that, and part of this too, Brian, you hit the nail on the head with competing with other teams, but people say, oh, well, these injuries don't matter. Oh, they lost to Tim Tebow in overtime with the brand new overtime rules, which wouldn't have mattered because they still scored a touchdown. You don't have the team that you had in the regular season going into that game. Above all, Demaryius Thomas gets open because Ryan Clark can't play in Denver because of sickle cell disease. And what do you think they attacked? They went right after Ryan Mundy, who blew his assignment, and game over. Okay? It didn't take I don't know. Tebow still went in the first round somehow. But anyways, it didn't take a top flight quarterback in order for that to happen. And that was the beginning of an end of an era there with that great Steelers defense. We're talking about guys coming from about 07-ish, because you're talking about Tomlin's era there. I mean, even James Harrison, even though he ended up playing more later, he ended up leaving the team. He had back issues. He didn't play all the time, this and that. They had to rebuild at a certain point there after that. You get into where they end up with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown as becoming the guy, and Ben Roethlisberger, and they find Martavis Bryant, but then he's not around either. They didn't have him in the postseason, so he's suspended that year in 2016. You finally have all three killer bees, and what happens? They smash the Miami Dolphins in the first game at home, wild card playoff game. Lev Bell sets the single game postseason rushing record that was held by Franco Harris in that game. Then he turns around and breaks his own record the following week at Kansas City, and then he gets hurt in the AFC Championship. He's in, I think, was it like 5 carries, 5 snaps? He gets injured in that game, and everything just kind of falls apart for the Steelers offense. They've always had Tom Brady and Bill Belichick have always been a sort of kryptonite. I mean, you even go back to Cordell Stewart in an AFC Championship game. So as far as that goes, in the beginning of Tom Brady there, even though Drew Bledsoe had played in that game too. But regardless of that, that's the only set of games. You had 2 games where you had all 3 of those guys healthy at the same time. Now, you had another one the following season, the final year of Todd Haley. They got super aggressive. Ben throws a pick 6 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. They end up down 21-0. They turn the ball over trying to be aggressive on 4th and 1 and stuff of that nature, and shot themselves in the foot, but they still didn't have Ryan Shazier. And I know people are going to say, oh, teams deal with injuries, this and that. We're talking about like top flight. At least I know some of the Pro Bowl's popularity contest, some of it is not. And Shazier was starting to turn into, we were talking about whether or not he was like a Troy Polamalu style game changer. And what did he have, like 5 picks or something around that time, around that span, either the season before or within that season. They didn't have guys to replace him. His replacement, Tyler Matakevich, was hurt. And it was a bad matchup with a Jaguars team that had already beaten them the previous in the year. I mean, they just had the wrong matchup for that. And they couldn't match up because they didn't have an inside linebacker there. And that's the game that's probably the most disappointing, in recent memory there, because they had the bye and everything else. But they honestly, Jesse caught it, and they should have been the 1 seed playing the Titans to begin with. They shouldn't have even been playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. But thank you, Tony Corrente.
All valid points.
Even though maybe the Titans do the same thing. If you play like crap, you play like crap, whatever be the case. And we see,
also
Bell,
a difference. Yeah.
And then Bell disappears on the team and everything. And I'm not going to go any more further into it, but just to illustrate, when you're saying you have talent, you don't always have all of that talent. I mean, let's say the Cincinnati Bengals don't have Joe Burrow. You look at what they did last year, and then they didn't have him. And then you look what they did this year. Some players matter. They really do matter, injuries or not. You're not replacing Antonio Brown. You're not replacing Le'Veon Bell in those Steelers offenses. Now, we've said this a bazillion times. Teams that make it to the Super Bowl are usually winning 2 or 3 games. There are only 1 or 2 teams that are going to win that many games. For all we know, the Bengals might not win another playoff game for another 30 years. You know what I mean? It's like, do you really? Everybody's on the bandwagon. They're the feel-good story right now. I understand. I get it.
No, they're not. I don't feel good about it. They're not a feel-good story. I don't feel good about it.
You know what? It's somebody within the division. Here's the only thing that I spin on it. It's not like I gag a lot living close to Cincinnati now. and in particular, in Dayton, Ohio, I'll tell folks, there's a Steelers bar right around the corner. There's a Browns backer bar right around the corner. I couldn't tell you where you go for a Bengals, for a Bengals game. They may have it on here or there as background noise, but the pro team in this area, believe it or not, and in Columbus, where you're seeing bandwagon people. I saw somebody with the TJ Hushmanzada jersey over the weekend in Columbus, Ohio, and I'm like, man, I'm surprised that doesn't have mop holes in it. You know what I mean? So you got some people jumping back on the bandwagon and whatnot. I kind of tease and make fun of them, but I like how people have said that this is a, this major turnaround for the Cincinnati Bengals. And, like I was saying, Filippone was the one that was coming up with this, and I had tweeted this out. And I said, how patient would you have been with 3 straight last place finishes over the last 3 years in the division, and 30-plus years without a postseason win, 25 wins total out of 81 regular season games over the last 5 years. You wouldn't have been. You would have ran Zach Taylor out of town. He would have been gone this past offseason, the way they want to run everybody out of town when it comes to the Steelers, because they have, a lot of these people just, they don't understand. And I know I'm preaching to the choir because most people that are coming here are listening for precisely the takes that we're saying. Would you be happy with 5 years, 6 years of, I'm not even going to say just like missing the playoffs. I'm talking about being like a doormat in the NFL within your division, and you get this one exciting season. And it's kind of the same way I feel with like the Rams, even though they've been a little more consistent. I feel like the way they structure their team and they sell out their whole draft, it's like, okay, great, you're in the Super Bowl right now. What do you do next year? What do you do in 2 years? Like, you look at the Eagles did something very similar when they sold out and got Carson Wentz, and then he didn't even end up playing in those playoffs. And that's not exactly the way. I think Steelers fans, even though they hate to admit it, would prefer to have the Mike Tomlin, no losing seasons, the Ben Roethlisberger, no losing seasons method and approach to always being competitive and in the conversation at least, rather than being made fun of where you don't even want to watch the games on TV.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting the next couple of years, and see how the fan base turns and whatnot, and where things go, because it is not likely to turn around and be a contending team immediately. And there are pieces of the puzzle that probably are going to need to be filled, as we've talked about. You don't go from, in most cases, in almost all cases, you don't have a Joe Montana, Steve Young scenario, right? You don't go from Hall of Fame quarterback to Hall of Fame quarterback. So you don't go from a Ben Roethlisberger to the next franchise quarterback overnight. Very unlikely.
And it's not like they had Steve Young anyways. He failed with the Buccaneers.
Yes,
Was
absolutely.
he top overall pick? He was a first-round pick. He was very high, and he didn't do anything with Tampa. So who's to say that?
Tampa stunk.
I know, but who's to say? Who knew that Steve Young? I mean, people probably had an idea, and then there was the USFL too, and some of those guys that come over from that. But it wasn't a sure thing. You saw. This is the thing that Jimmy Garoppolo. I gotta get your 2 cents on some quarterbacks, and not to catch up. Well, hold on. It's like that pipeline of the 49ers, because you said Steve Young, and it's like, well, that's very rare, because then you look Steve Bono and Elvis Gerback and some of these other guys that floated around the league that didn't have anywhere near the same amount of success. And now here we go again with another 49ers guy.
Yeah, look, I don't know. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo is a decent quarterback, right? I think he's better than anybody thought he was going to be when he was the backup in New England. Nobody knew for sure what they had. I think he's a decent quarterback. Is he a capable quarterback of winning a Super Bowl? Probably. Is he Steve Young? Is he Ben Roethlisberger? Is he, Aaron Rodgers? Is he an elite quarterback? I don't think so.
Is he even Derek Carr at this point? I don't even think he is.
Oh, come on. I don't know. Derek Carr stinks.
I know you don't like him, but that's the way I feel about Jimmy G. No, I think
David
the 49ers
stinks worse.
I think the 49ers had an idea, but that's my point. The guy only threw 94 passes in New England in all those appearances, and then they give him 5 years, $137.5 million. And
that's what you got to do with quarterbacks, right? I mean, you don't have any choice if you think you got the guy. Now, whether he's the guy or not is questionable even at this point. Did he do a nice job? Yeah, but does he make too many mistakes? Is he the guy that's really going to carry you in? I just don't know.
Make mistakes. Could you imagine if that's Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins in a playoff game, throwing that ball? It could be during the regular season. He's over with. You got to find a new spot to put the Red Bull, buddy.
I know. I keep whacking my little mic.
No, I ran these numbers during the last show, and actually Jimmy G brought up his playoff numbers a little bit here, but here you go: 11-19, 57.8 completion percentage. 131 yards, TD, interception, 2 sacks, 74.7 rating. These are all postseason games, and this is 2019 and then 2021. 6 of 8, 77 yards, so he gets a 104.7 rating for that. 6 of 8, which nobody would ever count as enough attempts. 20 of 31, 64.5, 219 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks. 69.2 rating.
Nice.
Absolutely. That was the loss against Kansas City in the Super Bowl. You come to this season, 16 of 25, 64 completed, 172 yards, no touchdown passes, and a pick, 67.4 rating. Gets sacked 4 times by Green Bay, 11 of 19, 57.8 completed, 131 yards, no touchdown passes again, and a pick. This past weekend, he had 2 touchdown passes, 232 yards, but he was only 16 of 30 for 53.3% completed, just a little over half. And he threw that bad interception at the end, and yeah, it come off the guy's hands or whatever, but that throw should have never been made to begin with. He's almost better taking the sack there or throwing it in the stands or in the dirt and taking a penalty for intentional grounding or something other than what happened. But lifetime, he's completed 60.6 of his passes in the playoffs, 4 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, a 74.1 rating, and 8 sacks, 6 games. This past game was a little bit better, but not by completion percentage, just because he caught the guys that were open like Deebo Samuel. And he's got Kyle Shanahan as his OC too, man. This isn't Matt Canada.
You want to talk about weapons?
Yeah,
he's got the
Kittle.
tight end Kittle. He's got Deebo Samuel. I mean, they've got weapons there for sure. I will give him credit because he gutted out some victories this season in the playoffs that he hasn't done in the past. But then he loses to the Rams. And the Rams tried hard to let him gut that game out too. Just off the top, not to steal some WTF thunder from our girl, but what is going on with these games in the playoffs this year? Oh my God! You want to talk about people wondering if the league is scripted? Man, every game, nail biter down to the edge, overtime.
Very last play. 5 games, very last play, other than the one we're just talking about with the Niners and the Rams.
Absolutely crazy. Anyway, so I'll give Garoppolo credit for, basically being better. He may have played himself back into the conversation in San Francisco this way. I mean, remember, they just spent a high draft pick on a quarterback. They were done with him.
Yeah. And that's the speculation. He's still under contract for one more year, but I think they saved like $20-some million. But more than likely, unless they just straight up release him for cap purposes, he's not a free agent. They just got to wherever with them, but how comfortable do they feel? He completes a lot of his passes, Brian. He's got high completion percentage. His problem is twofold. You look at his time with the Niners, 7 touchdowns to 5 picks, 5-3, 27-13. That's a little more palatable. 7-5, and then 20-12 this past season in 15 games. Not as palatable. Missed 2 games this season. He played in 6 games the first year, 3 the second, a full season in 2019, 6 in 2020, missed 2 last year. He's not on the field enough. So if you're going to trade something, it's going to probably be draft picks. The going rate for starting quarterbacks is bumped into the 30-ish mil a year conversation. You don't have cap room and you don't have picks. What else are you going to put around this guy that may not even be healthy? And then you're going to see Mason Rudolph or somebody anyways. That's been my argument about him the entire time. But so many people, they just saw that they beat the Packers and they didn't see how. And it was a special teams play. And it bothers me. It really does bother me that some of these things. And we talk about luck and things that are involved with some of these things, postseason and otherwise too. Yeah, there's always luck that's involved. You look at last season, the Buccaneers. I mean, Tom Brady threw 3 picks in an NFC title game. They got a defensive pass interference. Was that like on 3rd and long, 4th and long, that saved their ass, and that's how they end up going to the Super Bowl. This year, you look at Ryan Tannehill turning into a pumpkin, so the Bengals are able to run over him. Who thought that Patrick Mahomes was going to play like garbage after they go up like 21-0, 21-3, whatever? And there's another prime example, and this isn't the crap on the Bengals. It's just to say, too, that the Bengals had a little more.
Go ahead, crap on the Bengals.
Well, they got a little more going on. That kicker that they drafted is really strong, too. Deserves some credit. I'll give credit where credit's due, Brian.
Their defense has played like their defense is Jekyll and Hyde. Like they either stink or then they all of a sudden go, hey, you know what? We're way better than this. And they play lights out. I mean, we've talked about this. The defense is up and down. Burrow's a good quarterback. Jamar Chase is ridiculous. So yeah, they're going to be a threat in the division for years to come. I'm still not sold on their O-line, and I'm still not sold on Joe Mixon. And now they're going to draft low. Let's see how well they do, since they haven't actually done that great drafting high.
And they're going to play a better strength of schedule, having been the division winner. So there's a lot of factors in there where people panic, and I was going there. That's where I was going. And it's not to say that they won't be in the mix or competitive and everything else. It's the only team the Steelers lost twice to in the division. They went 4-2. They beat the other two teams. But everyone said these same things when Lamar Jackson won MVP too. So, and everyone else was saying these same things about the Cleveland Browns in the offseason after they had finally won a playoff game for the first time in forever. And it's almost like the Bengals stole their thunder. Like that's what everybody expected the Browns to have been. I don't think anybody, but it's something to say for what the Steelers season and what they had this year. One of the teams within their own division may end up winning the Super Bowl. And I think that's just more of a feather in your cap when you think about all the difficulties this team had, top and bottom, from bad offensive line to injuries and everything in between. And it's one of the reasons where I don't see the Steelers tanking for picks. We hear about this all the time. The Bengals weren't necessarily tanking for picks. I'll take that back. They did poorly and then benched Andy Dalton completely. Andy Dalton got hurt first, though. And then they kind of brought him back. And then they say, you know what? I don't know if there's incentives laden to that and they weren't going to pay him, or they saw what position they were in and they were like, we got an opportunity to play Joe Burrow or get Joe Burrow. Let's just stink out the joint for the last, it wasn't even half the season. It was like quarter of the season or so. But that's what it takes. And that's what it's always taken. Like Peyton Manning, top overall pick. Andrew Luck, top overall pick. Just this past season, and Trevor Lawrence struggled. He threw more picks than touchdowns. It's not always just an instant success. Usually the first year or two of these incoming quarterbacks, tough. But, I mean, you go back, did I say Elway already? You got so many guys, Troy Aikman, unless it's the top overall pick, and that doesn't even necessarily guarantee success with the quarterbacks coming out of college either. So
no, it never does. It never does.
And what happens when somebody might trade, unless you're the number one pick, nothing's guaranteed.
The only guarantee. Only guarantee that you get the guy that you want is if you're the first pick. And if you're the first pick, you stunk bad, right? You were so bad that you were worse than everybody else. That's the only way you get the number one pick. Now,
so is Cam Hayward and TJ Watt going to just roll over and lose games?
No.
I mean,
and this team is not going to. It's just not the culture of the team. They're not going to tank for picks. They're not. That just is not the way that they're built. It's the way the organization has never been built. They're going to do what they can. Now, if they can move to get somebody, they'll move to get somebody. If they can do what they can do, they'll try. But that is the reason they got Ben when they got Ben is they were 4-12 or whatever.
Oh no, they haven't been a 4-win team in maybe since I've been born. That's just something.
What was it the year in 2003? Because they were terrible.
Doing it real quick. 6-10.
6. So I was only off by 2, right?
Well, that's still 2, man.
6-10. 6-10 is a bad season, right? But even then, you got 6 wins. To get number 1, you're like 1 or 2 wins, at most. Otherwise, you're not, so if you want to live through that season, fine. But let's talk about what they're at right now. You draft a quarterback, let's say, where are they drafted? 20?
Yeah.
As it stands right now, if you draft a quarterback at 20, there is literally no guarantee that quarterback is going to do anything of value, right? And you have other glaring holes that you need to fix. First, again, and if you do that, okay, I'm going to draft a future quarterback, and then I'm going to go out and trade. You got nothing left to trade because you just drafted a quarterback, so you can't trade unless you're trading your future picks away, which is stupid and they won't do. But okay, somehow you managed to get some veteran quarterback to come back in. Now you still got a busted offensive line. Who's gonna want to come and sit behind that O-line? There's too many steps in the process. This is people who think that something is going to change dramatically, and I'll be the first to say if it happens, I will say I was wrong. But my expectation is unless somebody has a literal fire sale and is like, oh, we'll give you Jimmy G for a 6th rounder because we just want him off our payroll. Yeah. Right? Unless you get something like that, Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins is going to be your starting quarterback next year. That's just the way it is.
We've said that a million times, and that's something that is its own plate to chew off of and eat off of to talk. Because I didn't talk draft at all. I didn't talk about any of the guys in the draft. Free agencies first, and it just I went ad nauseum here talking about what it might take to pry away like an Aaron Rodgers, or I don't see Derek Carr going anywhere. I think that's why Josh McDaniels ended up signing with the Raiders.
Oh, well, I'm not going to hold my breath that he signs with the Raiders until they actually get past the preseason and it's still there.
Yeah, we've seen that story before. No, I think he put the pen to paper. I think it was on social media too, which probably still doesn't mean anything. Steelers haven't lost 5 games in a season, or only won 5 games in a season, I should say, since 1988, back with Chuck Noll. And that was a string of 4 seasons where they didn't make the playoffs after making the AFC title game in 1984 with Mark Malone. And I know people talk about dark days and this and that. There's a lot of teams that get somewhere, maybe with not. It's quarterback-driven league, but there's also defense and other things that factor into this too. But where was I at, Brian? I had. Jimmy G, well, we're on the subject of new quarterbacks, or not new quarterbacks, but new head coaches and hires and stuff like that. Mitch Trubisky's another guy that comes up a lot that people...
Go away.
Yeah, you didn't watch them play. I mean, these guys they both have 50, 60 starts. Jameis Winston gets thrown in here a little bit too, and that was a definite no. Last year, this last season with the Saints, I thought he showed a little bit more. But then again, we're talking about the Saints, their offense, better offensive line, Alvin Kamara, still no Michael Thomas there, but they still got some pieces that are, it's maybe different than the Steelers situation. Got a cannon of an arm. We'll see how many other teams are quarterback needy and might do that. But Mitch Trubisky, and I kind of said this out the side of my mouth on the last program, but now we got Brian Daboll there from Buffalo. And you got the GM that came over from Buffalo, over at the New York Giants, by the way. I didn't mention that. I think that's where he's headed. I mean, he was a backup with Josh Allen. He's never going to be the starter unless Allen gets hurt there. But you got Daniel Jones in New York. And you got the Giants. The Giants are looking, are they going to draft someone? Or they might still, but free agency's right there. It's like, hey, this is the guy. I just had this guy in my system, watched him practice for a full year. And he's been a starter before. Let's bring him in. If Daniel Jones fails in September, that could be the starter there. That's what I expect to have happen. Now, whether or not it'll be good or not is a whole other story. People say, well, the Bears dysfunctional. Matt Nagy was supposed to be this big offensive genius mind. It's not like Allen Robinson is toast. He had Jimmy Graham, and they had Trey Burton at one point, and Tarek Cohen and a whole bunch of offensive weapons that were there. And he actually made a Pro Bowl. And I think that's the reason why people see this and they say, oh, hey, get this guy. He made a Pro Bowl, blah, 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 blah. So just jumping off of that, too, we talk about coaches and hires and stuff. People talk about Mike Tomlin's coaching tree or lack thereof. And it's like, do you realize how many guys actually came over from Bill Cowher's staff? And some that are still there? Like John Mitchell, you had James Daniel, who was the tight ends coach. You had Keith Butler, who was the linebackers coach and moved his way up to be a coordinator. Dick LeBeau was there before that. They hire former head coaches like Todd Haley to be an offensive coordinator and Mike Munchak to be an offensive line coach. Where are these guys going? They're not going anywhere. It's like Pittsburgh's like a life job there. Jerry Osavsky's been there for ages.
For 10,000 years.
Yeah. You don't come to Pittsburgh for an opportunity to turn things around, and maybe this works for 2 or 3 years, and then you're on to the next location and the next thing in your coaching job. Keith Butler was never – I don't think Keith Butler was ever going anywhere. People tried to get him as a defensive coordinator, and he said nope. And then as far as the offensive coordinators, are you hiring Randy Fichtner? I mean, Randy moved up from quarterbacks coach up to offensive coordinator. So this is part of the tree, is the internal promotion that everybody hates or dislikes. And I'm not going to say that every move is grand or golden, but it's such nonsense because you see some of the guys who fall off of even the Belichick so-called tree, and they suck. You think Bill O'Brien was like this great head coach, and then he gets the keys as a GM? Holy crap. It set the Texans franchise back a decade probably. So that stuff just kind of drives me crazy. And it goes back to, well, with GMs, Kevin Colbert. Now we got confirmation, Brian, that Kevin Colbert is retiring, per Art Rooney's statements the other day in his interview. So you have these things that happened in the media. We were talking about this right from the jump, and how we go against the grain. And if you hear a rumor, we're not jumping into the rumor mill right away. You got to hear something. You got to know. You get some NFL insiders that say some things. You get some other clowns that say things. And this one's now official. And just to go back and share with some folks, Colbert's been on a 1-year contract agreement. He did 3 of them in a row. He said he wasn't going anywhere else, but he's getting to that point in the career where he wanted to do things year by year. He was 64 years old, entering his 22nd season with the Steelers last season. He joined the team in February of 2000. So This was something that you're anticipating, and the internal hire thing has been in place with either an Omar Khan or a Brandon Hunt for a while now. Again, it's not surprising, but a lot of people think of it as doom and gloom or rats jumping from the Titanic, and it's nothing of the sort.
No, absolutely it's not. And as Art the second said, he may even stay on in a limited capacity. It may not. He's just not going to keep the same role he had. And that's probably almost certainly by choice. At some point, I understand this mentality. I'm starting to it's never going to happen for me. But I feel that at some point you get a little aged and you're just like, you know what? I want to chillax. I want to Netflix and chill. I want to go do some fun stuff. I don't want to sit here and have to kill myself all season long doing drafts and doing this and traveling everywhere. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I will probably do that. You'll be sitting here with me 10, hopefully 20 years from now, and I'll just croak in the chair and we'll go viral. Podcast host dies on podcast. Anyway, whatever. That's just, if you have the opportunity, right, to retire and enjoy your life in your aged years, in your yesteryears.
Making up some other words. Yeah.
I know, yeah.
I had a slip of the tongue earlier with inundated, but yeah. Man, I mean.
So it's not unanticipated. Keith Butler didn't leave because he was going to be forced to leave. This was a targeted year. He was like, when I'm 65, I'm done. I want to go enjoy my family and go hunting in the woods or whatever the hell he's going to do. Kevin Colbert was like, all right, I'm
probably
done.
Crosswords.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I'm going to play Wordle. Whatever the hell. That's probably too modern.
Yeah, I was going to say the technology.
He's not doing Wordle.
He doesn't. Yeah, he has a flip phone.
Yeah. But it's just not. It's not that, right? It is the natural order of things. At some point, these guys go, I'm done. I'm tired. I want to take a break. And then they do.
And you know what I think prefaced this with both Ben and the Ben news was he went on that COVID list for that 1 week. Keith Butler goes on a COVID list. Man, this ain't too bad. Watching from home. Not having to sleep on the couch on the at the complex or whatever, watching film and all these other things. That the coaching is just nonstop. These guys don't get a break like the players. Now they could go to Arizona and run around and have fun in the sun or whatever, catching the football and tossing the pigskin around, and it just doesn't work that way. Now, more fun in the sun. This is where my whole point was going earlier with I got 2 of them actually, where somebody says something, sometimes it's Ian Rappaport and we still give him crap, or this time it was Adam Schefter. Tom Brady is announcing his retirement. And you had all these things that came out. Everybody jumped on it. You had it all over TV news, radio, every website. It dominated the coverage over the weekend, even with the conference championship games. And Tom Brady's like, at first it's his dad. His dad said something like, man, I don't know anything about that. And then Tom Brady, he said he felt bad about stealing everybody's thunder and this and that. But he's not announced anything yet. And he says he's still thinking about it. Now, does that mean he won't announce it like in 2 weeks or something like that? No, of course not. But it's just the knee-jerk reaction when somebody puts the bug out there, plants that seed, and it just grows like wildfire. And I'm going to tell you what the other one here is too, Brian. This one comes from, I don't know that I want to say the site. You can go over and find it, but there was a website that did an article on.
I'm just going to clue in. He has now officially announced it.
Has he?
Yes.
Oh,
I thought I saw that this morning. Yeah. Tom Brady has now officially announced his retirement.
Well, and that's exactly it. It's like, so he waited to announce it on, and it's funny because he just said, well, he was just on Mad Dog Radio yesterday and said he was on the Let's Go show. Yeah, I'm still going through the process. When the time is right, I'll be ready to make that decision. It's like,
clearly the time was right this morning on Twitter.
yeah. Well, we're recording, you know what I mean? So, well, apologies, but still, it's like everybody jumped on it, and then he said, well, no, wait. Brett Favre and everybody. But anyways, the one I wanted to get to, because I don't care about Tom Brady. The only thing I care about Tom Brady now is stealing Ben Roethlisberger's Canton Thunder.
Yeah, what the hell is up with that?
Yeah,
well, look, I'm just warning you. Look, dick. What the hell? You waited 22 years. Wait another damn year.
Yeah, tell everybody you're going to retire next year. Aren't you jealous? I thought he was going to be jealous. He didn't get the thank you Ben stuff on the stadium scoreboard and everything like that. But being Tom Brady,
going to get that. So.
Feed his ego. I don't know. He's got such a tiny head for having such a big ego. It's crazy. But this other one was it was a football blog that sounds pretty official, but doesn't have a huge following out there. And they had an article that was simply potential landings for free agents, potential teams that these free agents could land in. And one of them was Juju Smith-Schuster. And it said, source, Juju Smith-Schuster interested in Kansas City. There was nothing that said, my source said this, or anything else other than this tiny little subhead within the context of a larger article that somebody read, somebody with one of the Steelers blogs out here, and then all the other ones, as they tend to do, you got 4 or 5 of these sites that do nothing but copycat each other, put out the same thing, Juju interested in going to Kansas City next year. The author of the original article, I don't even think was trying to put out a rumor. He was just trying to make a link based on Smith-Schuster having spoken and having contract talks with the Chiefs last offseason before he decided to come back to Pittsburgh. So it was just speculating. Everybody else took that speculation and turned it into this giant rumor that Juju is interested in the Chiefs, and we don't know that he said that or anything even remotely close to that, let alone the fact that Chiefs, when this came out, the Chiefs are still playing. You can't even talk to free agents. It's just such a load of crap, Brian. It drives me nuts, and everybody takes it now as gospel. It's preposterous. And then you want me to get the other one on here or not? I got it before you
do your other one before I push this up. Yes.
Melvin Ingram.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we had to hear about his name once again with some of the people who saw him get a sack, and it's just like, please, just let it go.
Let me ask you this way: are the Chiefs in the Super Bowl?
No,
yes
sir.
Or no? Just then shut up.
Well, I believe this was another Ed Bouchette piece here, and not the
Ed Bouchette can shut up too, because Ed Bouchette. What happened to him when he left the Gazette? All of a sudden, he goes over to the Athletic, and he's Mr. Clickbait nonsense. Shut up, Ed Bouchette.
It really is, isn't it? And I'm trying to find it here. Hold on, I definitely have it because it was Alex Highsmith's father. Alex Highsmith's father had something to say.
Good
about this too.
Tell him, Sam.
Yes, and I'm trying to find it, and I'm not going to find it right away, so I might have you just go on that because I was going to. It's the same stats I've been reading off. He had all of the statistics that ended up happening here with Alex Highsmith this season happened from the Seattle game when Melvin Ingram was benched. And just to give you an idea of what that was in the 16 games he played, that was 6 sacks, 74 total tackles, 15 of those for loss. So 14 of those came from the Seattle game on, post-Ingram. All of the quarterback hits, 15 of them, post-Ingram. The 6 sacks were post-Melvin Ingram. If anything, the Steelers made the right decision there. And yes, Sam was the one who did end up calling him out. And of course, it's like I can't find the actual thing, but it was pretty crappy. Oh, maybe Melvin Ingram was right. He should have been starting in Pittsburgh.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yes, Sam.
This is what I did. This is what I did to him right here. This same thing that I've been doing. The off screen, you know what it is. Salute. That's for Mr. Ed Bouchette.
Yeah, and it's funny because Sam came on here and he posted the graphics with these statistics on it, where
get him, Sam. You go get him.
Where you see like the 3 sacks he had in however many games, including the postseason. 2 of those were half sacks in the regular season, and that's it. I'm not mentioning him anymore. I'm tired of mentioning him, but I just had to because it came up yet again, and people cling to this. And believe some of this garbage, and it's not true. Ingram, hold on a second. I'm going to tell you what Ingram ended up having, because it wasn't anywhere near. Would help if I could spell Ingram correctly. With the Steelers, he had 1 sack and he had 10 total tackles. Over the course of being with the Steelers too, just the 6 quarterback hits to 2 tackles for loss. He only had 2 tackles for loss and 5 quarterback hits in 9 games. With the Chiefs this season and 2 half sacks, they equated to 1 full sack. He had a total of 15 tackles. His number's nowhere near the 15 TFLs or QB hits, even cumulative being with the Steelers. Enough said. I may have mentioned it before. I'll mention it again when some idiot brings it up one more time during the offseason as a bad free agent signing in July, Brian.
Right. Yes. All right. We
got some business.
We got business. Hold on a second.
Oh, he's moving. So, just to give you an idea, Brian had to leave his chair here because we finally
I'm back.
have gotten around to the helmet. The helmet, are they worthy? Helmet worthy? We're not
helmet worthy.
Yeah.
This is the helmet worthy winners. Winners. I'm talking about people who are going to have to give me your damn address so I can send you helmets. That's right.
2%ers.
2%ers. You're here. It's time. The first one. Look. This guy, I don't know if Joe's going to get the video and figure out how to add it to the podcast or not, but we're going to see, because Mr. Bragg, you did an excellent job of mocking us. I enjoyed it tremendously, and it's all in good fun, but this is the reason. Your dad is getting this because I feel bad for your dad, okay? I feel bad for your dad having to deal with your ass as a Browns fan. So, he's a winner. Now, look, everybody else.
The dad, it's like, what happened there?
I'm
he's
an old
a Steelers
guy,
fan,
so I have some sympathy for the dad. Now, but because also we had absolutely great submissions, and I thank everybody who submitted stuff. I only had what I said was 1 helmet to give away, but because I also said it a long time ago, I might have 2. I do have this other one, which is, Mr. Big Checks. Mr. Big Checks, and I can't remember the guy's name. David? Is it David? What was his name?
Hey, don't look at me. I'm the one who gave you all the
forgot.
info.
Anyway, he lives in New England. He did some great videos, too. And you know who you are. We're going to reach out to you. You're getting the Antonio Brown helmet. So, Mr. Bragg, your dad is getting the Jeff Reed helmet with all the inscriptions. You're getting the Antonio Brown helmet. You get a helmet. Well, no. Okay. Only those 2 guys get helmets.
What was it, David? Is it Bazin or Bazin?
Yes, that's him. Yes, all right. That's him. You're getting a helmet. Here's what you got to do. DM me on Twitter or send us an email and give me your addresses, because I got to have your addresses. I can't. Look, I'm not walking them to you, but so I need to send them to you. Congratulations. We'll go from there. Yeah. We may have some more stuff to give away at some point, but for now, that's where it's going. And congratulations. It's a joy to behold.
Yeah, so, and I just wanted to clear up if there's any confusion on the Charles thing. It's his father is a long-time Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and Charles is a 2%er, so he qualifies there, although not directly. But for the old man, it's something nice that we could do for him. And then David with the Permani sandwich may have put it over the top for me, but this was your baby. And thanks for Brian. Everybody, thank Brian for making these helmets available. And we got some stuff there that's coming down the pike here, as Mom would say. So next up, we'll be talking about free agents. I'm trying to stay away from quarterbacks. So let's just talk about Steelers free agents. But there was enough of all of this malarkey going on since just even the last show with all of these retirement announcements. And yeah, I just saw it here, Brian, just 2 minutes ago. The official statement from Roger Goodell just came out too. So anyways, let's put a bow on the show. Thanks for joining me once again, my friend.
Always a pleasure. I missed being a part of the show. I'm glad that I was back. Hopefully I won't be disappearing anytime soon.
Please don't, because then I have to go on these long-winded rants, even though I had one on this one too. But my apologies there, buddy. But we got to get back in the groove now. It's off-season mode. So, folks, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, as we always do, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.